Hello and welcome to Access Asia. I'm Yuka Royer. On the show this week, a win for the forgotten victims of North Korea's human rights abuses. A Japanese court rules that Pyongyang must compensate survivors of a mass repatriation campaign decades ago. We'll get more analysis on the significance of this court ruling. They are the largest lizards on Earth after the Komodo dragons. Fascinating and scary in equal measure, Asian water monitors are reclaiming the world's most visited city, Bangkok. In a groundbreaking yet largely symbolic case, judges in Tokyo have ordered North Korea pay about 120,000 euros each to 4 plaintiffs who were lured into the country by deceptive propaganda. Under a repatriation program billed as a humanitarian project, tens of thousands of ethnic Koreans migrated from Japan to North Korea from the late 50s to the mid-80s. Instead of finding an idyllic socialist fairyland as promised, they found themselves trapped in a desolate authoritarian state. Antonia Carrigan tells us more.
For the first time ever, a Japanese court has held the North Korean state directly accountable for human rights abuses, ordering they pay 22 million yen in damages to each of the 4 plaintiffs.
The Japanese justice system has dealt with them sincerely. Today will probably be a starting point for them.
93,000 people left Japan for North Korea between 1959 and 1984, lured by the promise of a paradise on Earth. But on arrival, they discovered their living conditions there were abject, and they were denied the freedom to choose a home, school or job. Unable to leave for some decades, co-plaintiff Hiroko Sakakibara remembers the North Korean famine of the 1990s.
We were so desperately hungry, it was unbearable. Right now, I'm lost for words.
Ethnic Koreans who lived in Japan as a legacy of Japanese colonization of Korea were targeted by a repatriation drive, pushed by Pyongyang, then suffering a labor shortage, and welcomed by Japan, where Koreans were a marginalized immigrant community. Aiko Kawasaki only made it out in 2003, leaving behind her adult children. One daughter has since fled through China, but she hasn't had news of her other children since COVID.
I want to say to all those who implemented this repatriation program, get me my life back. For the 43 years that I spent in North Korea, from 17 to 60, the most important years of my life, I could not live like a human. Give me my life back. This is my fundamental demand.
Victims are also calling on Tokyo to apologize for its role in the scheme and to actively support those still stuck in North Korea.
Well, for more, let's cross now to Tokyo to speak with Kanae Doi, Japan director at Human Rights Watch, who've assisted the plaintiffs throughout their court battle. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Kanae.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, it's been hailed as a landmark. For the first time, a Japanese court ruled against the government of North Korea, with which Tokyo doesn't have a diplomatic relationship. But Pyongyang is not going to respond, is it, as its leader Kim Jong-un has ignored all the court summons. How significant, then, is this ruling?
This is significant because it is important to hold North Korean government accountable for its human rights crimes. The United Nations found in 2014 that the human rights violations committed in North Korea amounts to the crime against humanity. And then it said, quote unquote, unspeakable atrocities are happening in North Korea, and there is no parallel in the contemporary world. So that we have to hold perpetrators accountable. But it is a challenge because court system in North Korea doesn't function. And then ICC, International Criminal Court, for example, is not taking up this case. So having courts in Japan or elsewhere try to hold perpetrators accountable is very, very important.
Now, the plaintiffs in this case have indeed told heartbreaking stories of facing so much hardship once they arrived there. But why did this repatriation program go on for such a long time?
It was It was because the Chogoryon, pro-Pyongyang organization in Japan, which has branches all across Japan, has lied about the reality in North Korea, saying that it is paradise. And then it was really not possible to tell the reality by the people who migrated to North Korea, because their letters were there could not have any free communication between Japanese families. And also there was a fear of reprisal if families in Japan take up this situation and then press the Japanese government, for example, to stop this program.
As you've just mentioned, the campaign was spearheaded by Chongryon, the pro-Pyongyang association that's still a powerful lobby group in Japan today. Why weren't they then targeted in the lawsuit? And doesn't the Japanese government at the time bear at least some responsibility as well?
Yeah, Chongryon is hugely responsible about this program. So we may pursue another whatever actions against Chongryon. But because the North Korean government was the one who really knew the reality and then made this program, we first sued the North Korean government. But surely the Chongryon is really responsible. But also the Japanese government, Red Cross in Japan and North Korea, as well as ICLC, were officially part of this program. And then maybe they did not know the reality at the time when this program started, but they should have known the reality after a few years. So they should have taken steps to try to rescue those people in North Korea. And then it is never too late. So they have to, particularly, of course, the Japanese government has to stand up to press Pyongyang to allow the family, those repatriated, as well as the families of the victim of this Paradise on Earth campaign, so that they can come back to Japan.
So the recent court ruling isn't the end of the story. Indeed, one of the plaintiffs, Eiko Kawasaki, described the ruling as a starting point. What did she mean by that? And she still has 4 children living in North Korea from whom she hasn't heard from.
Yes. So for her, it is very, very important to be able to meet with the family still trapped in North Korea. And also, the tragedy is still ongoing for everybody in North Korea. So it is ongoing, unbelievable scale human rights violations. So this is only a first step. We have to really go on, and then the leaders around the world needs to stand up to press Pyongyang to stop these atrocities and also try to hold those perpetrators accountable.
Going back to that symbolic meaning of the ruling, do you think that in any way, though, a Japanese court or Japanese plaintiffs will be able to bring North Korea to face the trial?
So the next step is that the plaintiff needs to try to enforce the payment. And it is, of course, a challenge, but they would try their best to find the properties of the North Korean government and then enforce the payment.
And during past diplomatic talks with Pyongyang, Tokyo has mainly focused on the return of Japanese citizens kidnapped by North Korean agents. Why was the fate of over 93,000 people lured into the country under this program never discussed?
That is a pity. But of course, those kidnapped by the North Korean government should be brought up between the Japanese, government and North Korean government. That is for sure. But those 93,000 people who were deceived and lured into North Korea should also be discussed. And then the Japanese government needs to really press Pyongyang to allow these people back to Japan together, along with the citizens who were kidnapped from Japan.
Well, Kanae Doi, thank you so much for speaking to us from Human Rights Watch.
Thank you very much.
Now, How would you feel if you come across a giant reptile the size of a small crocodile during your morning stroll? In Bangkok, residents and tourists have become increasingly familiar with giant water lizards roaming around the city's famous Lumpini Park and beyond. While mostly harmless, they can also be a nuisance. Charlotte Lam and our colleagues at France Télévisions have more.
In Bangkok, some call them mini Godzillas. Roaming footpaths, canals, interrupting lunch breaks, and even appearing in children's playgrounds. Monitor lizards have invaded the city. 3 times a week, these students come to run in this park. And every lap, without fail, they spot them.
Today there are many of them, from small ones to very large ones.
They look like crocodiles, but with lizard heads.
These are Asian water monitors, the world's second largest lizard after the Komodo dragon. And now more than 400 of them call Lumpini Park home, one of Bangkok's largest inner-city green spaces. They've even become a tourist attraction.
It's an impressively large animal, a bit like Godzilla, but not as frightening, and it doesn't make as much of a mess.
Coexistence is not always easy. Water monitors are rarely aggressive, but a bite can cause serious injury and transmit disease. That's why 1,500 firefighters have been trained to catch them. As the urban lizard population explodes, authorities are receiving more calls to intervene. The scaly creatures are intruding on popular fishing spots, raiding livestock, and even crawling into people's homes. Today, these 2 firefighters have been called to a private residence. After a brief struggle, the reptile is caught.
These lizards are coming into my house more and more often, so I always have to call the firefighters to release them back into the wild.
Although water monitors are protected in Thailand, the government has started allowing restricted breeding, including for commercial use.
That's all for this edition of Access Asia. Thanks for watching and see you next time.